Over the past decade, distribution of perishable food has taken a major step backwards. Today it is common to see perishable foods like meat, fish, eggs, and dairy products transported for resale in unrefrigerated cars, vans, and personal vehicles. These foods are often placed on top of each other, side by side, with non-perishable items like rat poison, cleaning chemicals, and other products. Businesses such as bodegas, restaurants, delis, small supermarkets, and convenience stores are transporting perishable foods in unrefrigerated vehicles to their locations to be resold to consumers. Perishable food needs to always be kept at temperatures of less than 45 degrees Fahrenheit to ensure the best quality, freshness, stability, and most importantly, safe product. Agencies such as the FDA, USDA, and the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets demand perishable food is handled properly. New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets law dictates all vehicles used for transportation of pasteurized milk and milk products shall be constructed and operated so that the milk and milk products are maintained at 45 degrees Fahrenheit or less and are protected from the sun, from freezing, and contamination. And further, material which is capable of contaminating milk and milk products is not transported with milk or milk products. Academic institutions such as Cornell University's Department of Food Science, Quality Milk Improvement Program, the American Dairy Association and Dairy Council, and the Northeast Dairy Practices Council all agree perishable foods like milk and dairy products should never be out of refrigeration and always handled properly and kept cold. The Northeast Dairy Practices Council, an organization made up of industry, government, and academia, specifically states, all delivery vehicles must be refrigerated. It is necessary to maintain temperatures below 40 degrees Fahrenheit for fluid products. Never transport dairy products in open or unrefrigerated vehicles. Traditional food distributors are licensed by the New York State Department of Agriculture and are subject to local or state health department requirements. Those transporting food for resale in unrefrigerated vehicles are not licensed, are not inspected, or subject to the same security and scrutiny. There is a break in the cold distribution chain. Consumers in New York State are not receiving the safest quality food they deserve and pay for. Worse yet, this type of food distribution and handling can lead to even more serious problems. In a very recent report released from the Center for Science in the Public Interest, information is provided that clearly shows more oversight is needed in the distribution and handling of food for resale. The CSPI states, foodborne illness has been estimated to cause 5,000 deaths and 76 million illnesses per year. And during a 10-year period of 1998 to 2007, 56 to 70% of all outbreaks reported to the CDC had no known etiology or food vehicle. For the benefit and safety of all consumers, our food distribution system should not allow any perishable food to be transported in a non-commercial, unrefrigerated vehicle. Perishable foods should always be handled by licensed professional food distribution companies to ensure the best quality, best tasting, and safe products for all consumers. The Northeast Dairy Foods Association, Inc. encourages legislation be adopted to mandate perishable foods, especially dairy products, be transported in vehicles for resale, be equipped with modern refrigeration equipment, and licensed by the proper state agency responsible for proper enforcement. We would now like to show a short two-part video recently produced by ABC News in New York City, investigating the seriousness of the problem of perishable food transportation. After watching the video, ask yourself, would you purchase food from a business who you knowingly did not handle food properly?
Tonight, an Eyewitness News exclusive, an investigation into the potentially unsafe transportation of food, your food, to restaurants throughout the tri-state area. We have uncovered a widespread problem that could lead to food poisoning. Investigative reporter Jim Hoffer is here with the disturbing findings of this exclusive. Jim?
Bill and Liz, time and temperature play a huge role in food poisoning. That's why refrigerated trucks or coolers are critical to getting food to restaurants safely. Yet, we discovered throughout the region there are restaurant owners taking big risks with the health of their customers. It's enough to make you sick. Perishable foods being tossed into the back of trucks, blistering hot vans, and open pickup trucks. We spent weeks undercover watching one food retailer after another load up their vehicles with all sorts of temperature-sensitive foods, from fresh chicken and hamburger to raw seafood, boxes of milk, and cartons of eggs. That's 120 dozen eggs. We documented food retailers operating in what the U.S. Agriculture Department calls the danger zone, where bacteria grows rapidly in food transported in unrefrigerated vehicles. August 14th, undercover in Westchester County, as we watch perishables get packed into a van starting around 2:30 in the afternoon, including raw fish, milk, and eggs. We follow that van where its first stop is to get gas before crossing into Connecticut and heavy traffic. At 3:37, it arrives outside a Greenwich caterer, where workers begin unloading. Using an infrared thermometer, I'm able to record a temperature inside the van of 96 degrees. Sprouts and sour cream clearly visible in the baking sun. Then at 4:01, workers and the owner unload the rest of that food at his restaurant around the corner. 90 minutes, the food has been exposed to extreme heat. You're risking food poisoning.
No, we don't. Because we be careful.
Even after seeing our surveillance video, the chef insists he handles all his food safely. There's fish, no ice, no cooler, just placed in your van. It's 90 degrees outside. Why would you be transporting in a hot, unrefrigerated van
we
perishable
don't do it,
food?
I tell you again. We don't do it.
What do you say about this then?
Yeah, but this is once out of, 50 times, maybe 60 times.
So this was just a rare thing that we caught you doing? Hardly rare. Instead, we found the unsafe transporting of food by restaurants routine. In New Jersey, we watched as boxes of chicken and beef got loaded onto a cart inside the store. It's then set aside and sits there at room temperature for more than 30 minutes. Eventually, it's loaded into the back of a pickup truck along with gallons of milk. We followed that truck for 30 minutes, and when it finally reaches this restaurant in Elizabeth, it's been 2 hours since the food has been out of refrigeration. Half that time in 92-degree heat. That's your worker?
Yes.
When we showed the restaurant manager our video, she seemed in denial. And how do you explain all the boxes of beef and chicken that were delivered in the back of the pickup truck?
I'm telling you, it was freeze. That's what I know.
You're saying it's frozen?
It's frozen.
But our undercover video clearly shows the meat is fresh, not frozen. We spent weeks undercover. One of the nation's leading food safety scientists says our investigation shows a widespread practice of transporting food unsafely.
This is not an acceptable practice. The danger is that as you keep these foods out of temperature control and as you keep them out for longer periods of time, there's a possibility of the food spoiling, but even worse, there's a possibility that harmful bacteria can grow to greater numbers, and the more pathogens that are present in the food, the higher your risk of food poisoning.
Restaurant Depot, a big wholesale chain, has its own guidelines for transporting perishable foods. It highly recommends to not exceed 1 hour at room temperature, which is why they urge their customers to use refrigerated vans or at the very least pack the food on ice. But our investigation seems to suggest that most are ignoring these safety guidelines and instead are transporting food like this restaurant, stuffing it into a van with boxes of chicken, crab meat, fish, and huge slabs of raw meat. Then they head for home. In this case, a 26-mile trip, slowed by construction, that finally ends at this restaurant in Westchester County. It's 92 degrees as the unloading begins. The clock still ticking, now at 2 hours. Why no ice? Why no coolers on a 92-degree day?
It was it's not normal operating procedure. It's just a one-off.
What we discovered is that no one is monitoring this. It's part of the restaurant business that is off the radar of both the health and agriculture departments. But it's clearly a statewide problem that the Rutgers food safety expert says should be a top priority of health officials in both states. The story came to us through a tip. If you have an issue you need investigated, please give our tip line a call at 877-TIP-NEWS. You may also email us at the.investigators@abc.com. Tomorrow night, we take a look at what is perhaps the worst case that we found of unsafe food handling during this entire investigation.
Such a leap of faith we all take when we go to these restaurants anyway.
Yeah,
and it certainly seems like a lot of the restaurant owners are in denial about the whole problem.
No one seems to be watching us either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're watching tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks,
and we
Jim.
look forward to your piece tomorrow.
Thanks,
Jim. Thank you. We have more tonight on an Eyewitness News investigation into the potentially unsafe transportation of food to local restaurants. It's an undercover exclusive that reveals meat and milk being delivered in unrefrigerated vans. Jim Hoffer is here with much more on this disturbing story. Jim.
Yeah, Bill and Liz, tonight our undercover cameras turn to Long Island and to a delivery service whose way of getting food to restaurants will have you holding your stomach. What about this van and this van?
The air conditioner goes down to 40 degrees in this.
Do you want to show me what's inside here?
No, I don't want to show you nothing.
Of course you don't. He and his partner were less than happy to see us as they loaded up their unrefrigerated vans for another day of food deliveries to restaurants throughout Long Island. You're putting a lot of perishables in unrefrigerated vans.
And they're delivered within 1 hour, just like when you go to the supermarket.
On 2 different mornings, our undercover cameras captured this food delivery team as they shop for their restaurant clients at this Long Island wholesale store. It's just after 11 a.m. These carts are orders they filled that are waiting to be loaded into delivery trucks. It's thousands of dollars in food, much of it perishables, that require refrigeration. Meats, milk, butter, and eggs sitting off to the side in room temperature. At 12:35, they put some of the food into this refrigerated truck, but they're also putting it into unrefrigerated vans. It takes about 2.5 hours to finish loading up this van, which pulls out of the parking lot around 1:48. Its first stop, this restaurant in Hicksville. The food now has been out 3 hours.
Clearly, the practices that were shown in the video are not acceptable.
The director of the Food Science Department at Rutgers University says the conditions we uncovered are ripe for food poisoning.
The potential for something to go wrong is significant, and the possibility of making the problem worse by temperature abuse is definitely there.
To limit dangerous bacteria growth, state guidelines require that perishable food be kept at temperatures between 45 and 41 degrees or lower. Exposure above that should be kept to 1 hour or less.
The importance of temperature in controlling the growth of harmful bacteria can't be overstressed. It's just the most critical factor.
But our undercover video suggests a delivery service with a disregard for how heat impacts food. On this day, temperatures are in the 90s. It's one of the hottest days of the summer. Yet here they are again loading up their vans with perishables that we spotted sitting out of refrigeration around noon. It's now past 1 o'clock and they're still filling up the van. We videotape as boxes of fresh beef and 40-pound boxes of chicken are loaded for delivery. Remember, the food has already been out nearly 2 hours. The first stop is more than 20 miles away at this Mediterranean restaurant in Rockville Center. There are more stops at a sister restaurant in Baldwin. The clock keeps ticking as the food inside gets warmer. At this point, 3 hours, meats and dairy products still inside the van.
They've never had any problems in their restaurant.
Really? So you think this is a safe way to handle food?
Yep.
To have it in a van for 3 hours?
I'll see you later. I answered your questions. Goodbye.
Well, why don't you take a look at this video? This shows that you're transporting perishable food
back, you're gonna get run
for
over.
3 hours.
See ya.
You don't want to answer the question, do you? He says his delivery service has never had any complaints from restaurants that they deliver to. We should note that we offered to show these findings to state health officials. So far, no response. Now, if you have an issue you'd like us to investigate, please give our tip line a call at 877-TIP-NEWS. You may also email us at the.investigators@abc.com. One of the problems that this creates is an uneven playing field, if you will, for the legitimate delivery service that always uses refrigerated trucks. They're not cutting corners.
As customers, you don't have any way of knowing. You walk in the restaurant, you assume it's a leap of faith.
That everything's safe.
Yeah.
Obviously, something needs to be done about it.
All right, Jim.
Stay on it.
Really disturbing. Good work.